Hi, my name is Yanir Goldschmidt. I represent Lotus out of the Ukraine. First of all, I want to thank you for hosting me in your beautiful city. I come here about twice or three times a year, and I enjoy it every time. Second thing, I want to apologize in advance that I'm not a very good public speaker, so please bear with me. Let's start. First of all, one of the good things about Ukraine is that Ukraine has a surrogacy law. It's one of the only countries in the world that has a federal surrogacy law. The law states two very important things to start with. First of all, you need to be a heterosexual married couple in order to engage in surrogacy in the Ukraine. And second is that you have to have medical indications why you need surrogacy and why we can give you this service. Like it says here, we've been in business since 2009. We have 300, close to 400 births, families that have babies through us. And one of the good things about Ukraine, as far as the law, is when you sign a contract with a surrogate, in the process of signing the contract, the surrogate gives up her right to the baby, which means the baby is yours, and she cannot change her mind and not give you the baby. The second thing is that your names goes on the birth certificate, even if it's an egg donation or a sperm donation. Your name goes on the birth certificate. Takes us about 1 day to get the birth certificate, and another 7 to 10 days to get it translated and with two apostille, which is what's demanded by the Australian government for you guys to be able to get a passport for the child. Just that you know, usually American clients we send back home within 10 to 14 days. Australians get stuck in Ukraine, unfortunately, for 6 to 8 weeks, and the reason for that is the Australian government. We and the Ukrainian side is basically finished after 10 days tops. We're ready for you to go. One of the big advantages of the Ukraine, of course, is the prices. Surrogacy in the Ukraine costs about a third of what it costs in the United States, about half of what it costs in Canada. The reason for that is not that our medical system is not as good as theirs, but because the wages in Ukraine are a lot lower. I mean, average salary in the Ukraine is around $200 a month. Doctors, we pay between $700 to $1,000, $1,200 a month. So that's where the saving comes from. I don't know, here, okay. Very important cause, Okay, sorry. Okay, let's get to the contract part of it. It's very important because it's a legal procedure. It's very important to do the contracts the way they're supposed to do. You need to have the contract notarized, and you need to pay the taxes on the contract. If you don't do it right, you might have a problem afterwards getting the birth certificate and being able to leave Ukraine. Now, a lot of people don't do that because if you change surrogate along the way, you need to prepare a new contract, you need to pay the taxes again, and people just don't want to do it, and there's a lot of monkey business around it. But if you get caught, you just might not be able to leave Ukraine with a baby. So it's very important you do it the right way and the legal way. Another thing is that you have to have the sums of money that are paid to the surrogate in the contract, because that's the base for the taxes, and it's very important to the Ukrainian government, and it's done that way. And the third thing is that you cannot have a third party involved in the contract. The contract has to be between the intended parents and the surrogate. You cannot have the clinic or the agency or anybody else involved in the contract. In the last few years, ever since the last 3 years actually, since India, Nepal, and Thailand closed, the whole world is running to Ukraine to do surrogacy. That's a good thing, and it's also a bad thing. There's been a lot of pop-by-night new operations in the Ukraine. People don't realize how sophisticated it is, how complicated, what kind of logistics have to be done to that. A lot of people open a surrogate agency and then they can't deliver. So it's very important for you to go to an agency that has a track record. You need to talk to people that have done the process. Australians, in your case, that have gone through it. And when you do, talk to people that have had problems along the way, not just people that everything was successful for them, but people that had problems along the way, maybe didn't succeed, the transfer didn't succeed in the first time, maybe they had a miscarriage along the way. It's very important to see how the agency dealt with it and how the agency solved their problem. When everything is good, then the agency is fine, but you need to prepare for the worst. Again, this talks about the agencies. Be careful who you do business with. Unfortunately, the online community is a great thing. It gives you a lot of information, but unfortunately, there's a lot of fake profiles out there. Make sure you talk to real people. Make sure that it's a real person that has a real baby, and not somebody that's like a salesperson for the clinic. Okay, once you sign the contract with Lotus, we send you like a questionnaire which you fill out about what you expect out of the surrogate. If you want somebody that's married, not married, working, not working, younger children, older children, and so forth. Once we get the questionnaire, it takes us about 3 to 4 weeks to match you up with a surrogate according to your needs and desires. Surrogate matching, Okay, this is sort of recommendations of what you expect out of your surrogate, but again, it's recommendation. Each person has to do what's best for him.
What's the distance from Kiev?
From Kiev to what?
What is the distance? You have one of their top point distance from Kiev. Why does that happen?
I don't understand the question.
Distance in kilometers better, the surrogate mother to be away from Kiev.
Well, we've had surrogates that were 700 and 800 kilometers from Kiev. It's not a problem because usually what happens at around week 16 to 20, we move the surrogates, usually with their children, to Kiev, and they stay for the duration of the pregnancy in Kiev.
Here in Australia.
Sorry?
Here in Australia.
No, Ukraine.
Oh.
We have nothing to do with Australia. We don't do anything in Australia. Again, like you pick the surrogate also has to pick you. I mean, the surrogates also tell us what they expect to get as compensation. Some of them are willing to carry twins, some are not willing to carry twins, and so forth. And that's part of the match. You pick the surrogate, she also picks you. Okay. IVF clinics, especially our IVF clinic, is really good. We have 70-something, close to 80% success ratio in first-time transfers of embryos using donor eggs. Usually when people use their own eggs, on average, we're successful on the second attempt. Now, some people are successful in the first, but unfortunately some people it takes 4, 5, and 6 attempts. But average it takes about, for using your own gametes, usually you're successful on the second attempt. Okay, it depends on basically on the quality of the gametes. We usually transfer, the doctor recommendation is to transfer 1 embryo, but if the parents want, we will transfer 2. For some reason, unfortunately, a lot of Australians prefer to transfer 2 embryos. Maybe they want to get 2 kids for the price of 1 or whatever, but we prefer that you only transfer 1. We have a very high success ratio. No reason to go into more dangerous pregnancy. And when you have 2 embryos, when it's a twin pregnancy, it's a more dangerous pregnancy. Also, most surrogates prefer to use to carry 1 embryo, and we use unless we usually use like a day 5 embryo, what's called a blastocyst, which is one of the reasons we have such a high success ratio. When the woman is a little bit older and or the embryos are not as good, then we would use a day 3 embryo. But when the quality of the embryo is good, we grow them to day 5, we transfer, and over 70% success ratio with donor eggs, like I said. That pretty much covers what I plan to talk about. I wanted to bring up another subject, which is very important for anybody going into surrogacy, not just in Ukraine, but all over. I am the financial and logistics manager of the program in Ukraine, and I deal with a lot of parents. And I think a lot of people have a very unrealistic expectation of what surrogacy is. I mean, surrogacy is not that you just come, sign a contract, and 9 months later come to pick up a baby. We're not a factory, okay? You're dealing with people and you have to understand it. Sometimes you're expecting an email about the results of the test, and we get the results at 5 o'clock in the evening and we translate it, and sometimes you don't have time to translate it. You do it the next day, and because of the time difference, you get it the day after, and people have to understand this. Sometimes the surrogate has to go for an ultrasound and her son is sick and she doesn't have a babysitter, and she's not going to come, and she'll come 2 days later. So you have to have realistic expectations. You have to understand that you're dealing with people, and people have problems. And it's my job to solve their problems, but it doesn't always work the way it's scripted. So have realistic expectations about what you expect to get out of this program. You and us, we're all in this basically for one reason and one reason only: to end up with a healthy child. That's the name of the game. That's what we're all here for. So basically, put all your efforts, everything you do into that. Don't get involved in everything around it. Get involved in succeeding, coming home with a healthy child. That's basically what I have. If anybody has any questions, I'd love to answer. Please go ahead.
You mentioned at one of your early slides about getting the legal framework correct?
Yes.
And the contracts correct?
Yes.
Is that something that the agency takes care of, or is the intended parents have to do that with a local lawyer?
Very, very good question. In the Ukraine, the way it works, unlike the United States, you have one telephone number, you have one email. We do everything for you. In the United States, for instance, you have to recruit your own surrogate, your own egg donor. If you need an egg donor, you need to find an insurance specialist, you need to find a fertility clinic, whatever. In the Ukraine, you have one telephone number. We do everything, from sending somebody to pick you up from the airport that you land, making sure you have lodging accommodations, making sure the contracts are done, recruiting your surrogate, recruiting your donor if you need, making sure that the donor and the surrogate come to the clinic for the tests, make sure that once the surrogate is pregnant, I basically become her father and mother, okay? It is, that's true. I solve all her problems, and like I said before, if she doesn't have a babysitter when she needs to go to the hospital to give birth, and some of them are single mothers and they don't have a babysitter, I make sure that somebody stays with her kids. And it's funny, but if she has a dog, then I make sure somebody goes to feed her dog when she's in the hospital. I mean, we take care of all their problems. I make sure that if she needs to come to the clinic for an ultrasound, then 3 days before that, we already start reminding her, and if she's not in Kiev, we make sure that she has a bus ticket or a train ticket, and somebody comes to the airport, to the train station to pick her up and take her to the clinic, and with her in the clinic, and then if the parents had like specific questions they wanted to ask the doctor, that those questions are asked to the doctor and are translated back to English and sent to you. We basically do everything. We also do all the legal work for you, which means basically that in the beginning, we make sure that according to your specification and what the surrogate asked for, everything is in the contract. We get the contract notarized. We pay the taxes on it. In the end, when the baby is born, we get you the birth certificate. We run through the Ukrainian government, make sure the birth certificate is apostille. It needs 2 apostille according to the Australian government. We help you unload all the questionnaires that the Australian government asks. It's a lot of paperwork. We help you fill all those up. We do everything for you.
Any other questions before we get in?
Yeah, please.
With your IVF, do you do PGD testing?
We do PGD, 5 chromosomes, 24 chromosomes. We do CGH and PGS, whatever needs to be done. It's very advanced in the Ukraine. By the way, if you need something that you cannot, some genetic, you're aware of some genetic problem that for some reason cannot be tested in the Ukraine, we can fly a tube of blood, and we've done it to the United States to be tested. So that's not a problem. Any other questions? Thank you very much, guys. Enjoy the rest of the program.